Ever wondered who makes sure your flight isn't delayed because of, well, a hurricane?
Or just like a bit of light drizzle.
Yeah, exactly. Today's deep dive is taking us into the world of aviation meteorologists.
The unsung heroes keeping air travel surprisingly smooth.
They really are. And we're lucky enough to have some insights from RoleCatcher, a website that breaks down careers in fascinating detail. So no pressure, but if our listener ever wants to predict the skies for a living, this is the episode for them.
Challenge accepted. Let's start with the basics. Aviation meteorologists are the reason planes don't just fall out of the sky when a storm hits. They go way beyond your average rain check.
Okay, so beyond telling me if I need an umbrella at my destination, what are they actually doing with all those weather maps I never understand?
Think of them as weather detectives. But instead of a magnifying glass, they've got satellites, radar systems, even reports from pilots in the air. They're analyzing massive amounts of data to predict things most of us wouldn't even consider.
Like what? Give me an example that'll make my hair stand on end next time I'm at 30,000 feet.
How about microbursts?
Micro what now?
Microbursts. Imagine a sudden downdraft, so strong it can slam a plane into the ground during takeoff or landing. Aviation meteorologists are trained to spot the conditions where these things form, giving pilots the warning they need to avoid disaster.
Okay, now that's what I call high stakes. Knowing all that's going on behind the scenes definitely makes me appreciate a smooth flight even more.
And keep in mind, they're not just dealing with one plane at a time. They're providing forecasts to entire airports, helping air traffic control make decisions about routing, delays, even ground crew safety.
So their work has this ripple effect on the entire aviation industry. What's a typical day like for an aviation meteorologist? Do they just stare at computer screens all day?
Some days, sure, but this isn't your 9-to-5 desk job. They might be based at weather stations, control towers, even out on the airfield during critical conditions.
And I'm guessing there's no such thing as a typical day when you're dealing with Mother Nature, right?
Exactly. They work irregular hours, monitoring ever-changing weather patterns. During severe events, they're the ones making the calls that impact hundreds, sometimes thousands, of passengers.
Knowing all this responsibility, you might be wondering, how does one become an aviation meteorologist? Do they just hand you like a radar and a cup of coffee on your first day?
It's a bit more involved than that. A solid foundation in science is crucial. Typically, a bachelor's degree in meteorology, atmospheric science, or a related field is the first step, but it doesn't stop there.
RoleCatcher actually dove into the specific skills needed, and some of them surprised me. Apparently, reading comprehension is huge EE in this field.
That makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
They're constantly reading reports, research papers, staying updated on the latest developments in forecasting technology. It's a field that demands continuous learning.
So it's not just about memorizing cloud formations. You need critical thinking skills to connect the dots between different data points and make those crucial decisions.
Absolutely.
hmm
And let's not forget the human element. RoleCatcher also highlighted active listening as a key skill, which honestly surprised me at first.
Why is listening so important? I mean, they're scientists, not therapists.
Because they're part of a larger team. Aviation meteorologists work closely with pilots, air traffic control, even airline operations. They need to listen carefully, understand different perspectives, and communicate their findings in a way that everyone understands.
It's like being a weather translator, taking complex data and making it actionable for everyone involved. So you've got the degree, you've honed your skills. What's next? Is it straight to the control tower?
Not quite. Like any profession, there's a career ladder to climb. Many start at entry-level positions, assisting senior meteorologists, monitoring data, and learning the ropes.
Like an apprenticeship for weather forecasting.
Exactly. As you gain experience, you might progress to become a junior meteorologist, analyzing weather patterns, issuing forecasts, even briefing pilots and airline staff directly.
Now we're talking some real responsibility.
And with great responsibility comes, well, even more responsibility. From there, you might become a mid-level meteorologist, leading teams of forecasters, developing innovative forecasting techniques, or advising on safety measures.
So you're not just predicting the weather, you're shaping the future of aviation meteorology.
Precisely. And finally, you reach the top of the weather pyramid, the senior meteorologist. They oversee operations at multiple airports, manage large-scale weather risks, and collaborate with industry leaders.
Sounds like a career with a pretty impressive view, both literally and figuratively. But RoleCatcher also mentions some drawbacks, right? It can't all be smooth sailing.
Well, no job is without its challenges. RoleCatcher highlighted the irregular hours, the constant need to adapt to new technology, and of course the inherent stress of dealing with unpredictable weather events.
Let's talk about that stress for a minute. We've mentioned it a few times, but it's worth digging into. These are the folks making decisions that could impact the lives of thousands of people.
Exactly. Imagine having to make a critical call during a severe weather event, knowing that your judgment could be the difference between a safe landing and a potential disaster. That's a lot of pressure to carry.
And it's not like it's just one big decision, right? They're constantly like weighing probabilities, analyzing risks, making judgment calls based on incomplete information. Talk about a mental workout.
Absolutely. It takes a certain kind of person to thrive in that environment. RoleCatcher actually found that aviation meteorologists score high in something called, get this, tolerance for ambiguity.
Which means, in plain English, please, for those of us who don't speak corporate jargon.
It means they're comfortable with uncertainty, they can process tons of data, make the best call possible with what they have, and adapt quickly when conditions change. Which, let's face it, happens a lot in meteorology.
Makes sense. You can't exactly file a complaint with Mother Nature for not following the forecast. So all this talk about stress and responsibility, it kind of makes you wonder, why would anyone choose this career?
That's the paradox, isn't it? It's demanding, high pressure, you're constantly battling the forces of nature. But for those who are drawn to it, it's also incredibly rewarding.
RoleCatcher mentioned something about high demand in this field too, right?
They did. They're projecting a 6% growth rate in aviation meteorology over the next decade, which is significantly faster than many other professions.
So it's a secure job market, potentially with some travel opportunities, and you're literally helping people reach their destinations safely. That's a pretty compelling case, even with the challenges.
It is. And it's a career that's only going to become more important as air travel continues to grow and weather patterns become, well, more unpredictable.
Speaking of unpredictable, we didn't even have time to get into the weird stuff they must see on the job. Any memorable weather events come to mind?
Oh, I could tell you stories that would make you swear off flying altogether.
Okay, I get it.
But we'll save those for another deep dive.
Deal. But next time, I'm calling for a rain check if things get too wild. So as we wrap up here, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away from all of this?
Next time you're boarding a plane, take a moment to appreciate the hidden world of aviation meteorology. These are the folks who make sure you reach your destination safely and on time. The unsung heroes of the skies, and trust me, their job is anything but boring.
Well said. And for our listeners who might be, future aviation meteorologists in the making, we've included some additional resources in the show notes. Until next time, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.